I'm Anastasia Chatzka, a fashion designer with over 20 years of experience and a sewing educator. And I'm really excited you're here to share another sewing adventure with me today. Welcome to Sew Anastasia, and today we are going to make a knife pleated wrap skirt. These skirts are so fun and trendy to wear, and they're so easy to create. So follow along, and I'm going to show you how to create a pleated knife skirt with no pattern. If you're not already a subscriber to Sew Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. Also, if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and following me along on my sewing adventures. Also, I'm now teaching sewing classes in person and virtually. You can sign up for those at sewanastasia.com, so check it out. Supplies for this project are as follows. You're going to need a clear ruler. You're also going to need a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter. You're going to need a fabric marking tool. I'm going to be using a blue water-soluble marker. You're also going to need some matching thread. Of course, we're using pink. You're going to need some pins, and you're also going to need 2 buttons. And don't forget to pick out your favorite plaid fabric, or it could be non-plaid, but we're going to be using plaid. So I'm going to be using this pink and blue plaid fabric here. And you're also going to need some interfacing. I'm going to be using a fusible interfacing. And if you're wondering how much fabric you're going to need, it's really going to depend on your size and how long you would like your skirt. I'm going to be using about 1 yard of fabric to create my skirt. The first thing we need to do is figure out how much fabric do we need to cut to go all the way around our waist and pleat it up. So you're going to need to take your waist measurement times 3. And this is going to give us a pleat depth of 2 inches, and the outside little pleat mark is going to be 1 inch. Then we're going to need to add to that, because we need a little bit of an extension that can lap over, so that way we can have a wrap skirt that's pleated. So I'm going to add 2 extra pleats on both sides, so that's going to give me a total of 6 extra inches on each side, plus my seam allowance. So I'm going to be adding 13 inches total to the waist measurement that I get. So to summarize, you're going to take your waist measurement times 3, and then you're going to add 13 inches to it, and you're going to end up with one giant long rectangle. So that's how you get your waist measurement. And now you need to choose the length of your skirt. You can choose any length that you would like. I'm going to be choosing 14 inches long for the length. So that means my rectangle is going to be 91 by 14. Really big, right? So crazy. So let's cut it out. We also need to cut out our waistband. The waistband length is going to be our waist plus 5 inches, because we have that extension of 2 inches on each side that's going to overlap for our pleat, plus your 1/2 inch on each end for your seam allowance. So that means your waistband length is going to be your waist plus 5 inches and 2 inches wide. So let's cut it all out. Since I have a nice woven cotton fabric, I'm going to measure down 14 inches. I'm going to put a snip, and then we can actually rip the fabric to make sure it follows perfectly on the plaid. So I have my giant rectangle cut out, and we are ready to pleat it. I also have my waistband cut out, and I also went ahead and cut out my interfacing. You're going to need to cut out your interfacing the exact same size as your waistband. The interfacing is going to make the fabric of our waistband a little bit more sturdy, so it can hold all of those pleats. Now that we have all of our pieces cut out, I'm going to go ahead and iron on the fusible interfacing to the waistband. Then we'll have all of our fabric prepared, and we can start marking our pleats and pinning them. We're going to fold the muslin over so we don't get glue on our iron or on our ironing board. Go ahead and steam that down. And then you'll notice it's stuck to the fabric. So we have the interfacing on the waistband, it's looking great, and then you want to go ahead and serge all the edges of your waistband and of your skirt. But if you don't have a serger, don't worry, you can also zigzag or overcast your edges so they're nice and finished. Also, at this point in the process, I also like to iron my waistband in half, so that way I know where the center of my waistband is for later on. Now we're going to do things a little backwards. So we usually hem our projects at the end, but for this project, we are going to hem it first. So we're going to be turning in the front edges, and we're going to be folding up the hem, just a plain single folded hem, a 1/2 inch. So we're going to fold in these short edges, a 1/2 inch, and sew it down, and we're also going to do it at the bottom. Again, I'm just doing a single folded hem, so I'm folding it up a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to stitch it down. Don't forget to back stitch. have everything hemmed and it's looking great. Now we're gonna mark our pleats. Okay, so we are going to make a ton of lines on our fabric, and we're gonna start with 1 inch. So we're gonna make a 1 inch line, and then 2 inches out from that, and then 1 inch out from that, and then 2 inches. So we're gonna create a series of marks on the fabric, 1 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch. And those are gonna be our lines for folding our pleats. I'm also gonna mark down till 4 inches because that's where I want my edge stitch to end when I'm sewing down my pleat. So you don't have to mark all the way down your fabric, just mark as long as you plan on sewing. And I'm gonna be sewing down 4 inches. So I wanna make sure I line this up with the top, and I'm at my 1 inch on the side, and I'm at 4 inches. My ruler is 2 inches, so I'm just gonna place the edge of my ruler with that chalk line, and I'm gonna go ahead and draw another mark. And now I'm gonna do another 1 inch line. So I've got 1 inch, 2 inch, and now we're gonna do 1 inch again. And now we're gonna do 2 inch and 1 inch. And now you're just gonna keep doing this all the way down the length of your fabric. Now that we have everything chalked out, we're going to fold our lines together and pin them. Now we're gonna fold our pleats. So I wanna end up with a little bit of an angle in my pleat so it drapes around the shape of the body really nice. So when I meet my 1 inch to my 2 inch, I want it to stay nice and straight about 2 inches in. And then we're going to blend it out just about 1/4 inch. So I'm making sure that I take my fabric and I just pull it over 1/4 inch from my chalk line, and then I'm going to repin it. Now I'm gonna take my next chalk line, bring it up to the next one that's there. Now I'm gonna keep it nice and straight up till about 2 inches, and then I'm gonna take the bottom of it where it meets the 4 inches and bring it out about 1/4 inch. We're gonna do this one more time so you can see what's happening. So we're gonna take the next chalk line, match it, pin it so it's nice and straight for the first 2 inches, and then for the bottom, we swing it out about 1/4 inch. Now by doing this, you're gonna notice that your waist is gonna start to curve and take shape, and that means this is gonna lay around your waistline really nice. And then we'll go back later and give these a good iron. These are called knife pleats because they're nice and sharp after we iron them, and they're going one direction. So let's pin the rest of our knife pleats down. Now that we have it all pinned, you can see the shape that it's taking for the waist. It has a nice, beautiful curve to it. Now what we need to do is go to every single pleat and edge stitch right at the fold. So we're gonna have to go and do this so many times. So let's head over to the sewing machine and sew up all of our pleats. So we're gonna be edge stitching right on the fold, and we're gonna be sewing all the way down to that 4-inch spot that I have marked with the chalk. And we are gonna do that so many times to create all of these beautiful pleats. So let's do it. And don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Back stitch and cut. We're just gonna move right on over to the next one. Make sure you take out your pins before you get to them. Now we have all of our pleats sewn down and it's looking great. Next, we're gonna sew on the waistband. Now grab your waistband and we're gonna place right sides together and make sure that your waistband is hanging off 1/2 inch on the edge because that's what we left for seam allowance. So we can go back and finish that up after we sew this on. So I'm just gonna put a few pins in it here and there just to keep it nice and flat. And then when you get to the end down here, also make sure that your waistband's hanging off a 1/2 inch on the edge because we need that seam allowance to finish the front of it. Put one more pin in here and we're good. Now we're gonna go over to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew up a 1/2 inch all the way down the waist. Okay, let's sew up the waist at a 1/2 inch and don't forget to back stitch. Back stitch at the end and cut. Now that your waistband's sewn on, it should look something like that. And from this on the inside. Now what we need to do is finish the edge of the waistband here. So what we're gonna do is place right sides together and we're gonna fold it right where that crease is for the center of the waistband. So it should look like that. And now we're gonna sew straight up from the front of the skirt, so that should be about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to cut some of my seam allowance off and then we're going to flip it right side out and then look how nice the waistband is. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Now that we have the front of the waistbands finished, what we need to do is take it and flip it over to the back, and then you'll notice that it's folding at the crease on the top. And now all we need to do is stitch in the ditch right here in this seam where the waistband meets the skirt. That will hold the waistband to the skirt and finish everything up. And then the only thing that's left after that is the button and the buttonhole. When I'm creating the stitch in the ditch, I'm lining up the center of my foot with that seam. Back stitch at the end and cut. Now we have the waistband on and our skirt is looking fantastic inside and out. Next, we need to put on a buttonhole and a button, and if you don't know how to sew a buttonhole on your sewing machine, make sure you check out one of my videos on how to sew a buttonhole. I have one on either a manual or an automatic buttonhole, and how to sew a button. There's also a video on that. So we're gonna put the buttonhole horizontally at the edge of the fabric here, and then our button is gonna go back here. And if you want, you can also put a snap or something down at the bottom so your skirt doesn't blow open on you. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll be done. We did it! We finished the knife pleated wrap skirt, and it is so cute. I love how it turned out. I gave it a good press, and it gave it those nice, sharp pleat lines. You'll notice how nice the button and the buttonhole looks here. And if we spin it around, it fits over the hips so nice because we gave the bottom of the pleat that little flare. If you enjoyed this video today on making a pleated skirt, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Also, I would love to know what color of plaids are your favorite plaids. Leave that down below too. And if you make a pleated skirt, make sure you tag me at Anastasia so that way I can share it with everyone else and share your creativity. And if you're not already connected with me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all those fabulous social media websites, make sure you find me at Anastasia so that way we can stay connected and creative together. And also don't forget, I'm now teaching sewing classes in person and virtually, and you can sign up for those at sewanastasia.com. And if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when all my new videos come out. Right now I'm putting out about 2 videos a week. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for following me on my sewing adventures. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!